Hello, everyone. Hi. How are we doing? Shitty, good, somewhere in between. Somewhere in between. Let's start with how we always start. Take a second, introduce yourself to someone around you that you don't know. So if you came with each other, don't introduce each other and answer this question. Wait. The question is, what should Biden do? Okay. Take a minute and talk about that amongst yourselves. You have to answer it too. All right. I know it's not a lot of time, but we're going to get into it. Yeah. Okay. All right. All right. Bring it back. Bring it back. Bring it back. All right. First one, because I want Dan to witness this. So let's bring our esteemed panelists to the stage. Dan Moraine, who is like one of the most senior political reporters in California, has written a book about Kamala Harris, is writing another book, and knows more about California politics than probably anyone in the state. But before we start, would love a couple answers from you guys. Who has like a burning answer to the what do you think? Who has a strong opinion on what you think President Biden should do as it relates to his campaign? Yes. But stick with it. Okay. All right. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Okay, let's get one over here. Someone raised their hand over here, didn't they? No? Yes, it was. Yeah, and then we'll go around. We'll get a couple. Yeah. Okay. Let's go over here. Was there one? Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Version of it. I just got to see it actually. It's in. Yes, the actual copy. No, I saw it. It's in the New York Public Library on display, and I got to see the paper copy with his notes. Ben, what do you think you should do? You think you should step aside? Why? He's not going to beat Trump. Josh, you had one. Wait, it's not restricted to humans? What is this? I see. I see. Okay. Let's get one or two more. Yes. She said, well, I'll repeat it. Yeah. 11th hour. It's too late to make a change. We got 4 months. We're here in the back, and then you'll be the final one in the blue. Yes. He could do whatever he wants, but if he stays on the ticket, he's going to lose. Yes. Caleb, that's my neighbor, so you don't need to check her ticket. Yes. This is my neighbor, everyone, Elise. I missed it. What did you say? Staying in is too risky. He's going to lose against Trump. We can't do that. My friend in the blue, we're going to get into all this. Everyone will have more audience participation. But what do you think Biden should do? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I want tonight's conversation with this political expert. I want to talk to him for a bit about this, but really I do want this to be a community conversation because I don't know about you all, but the news over the last week and a half has been so intense and stressful, and I want us to talk amongst ourselves as a community, as a democratic community, about how we feel, what we think should happen, strategy if we think it's possible, and I actually think we should try to work this out a little bit as a room. Um, what else should, in my view? Oh fuck! I don't think I should. Um, okay. I can't. I really can't. Yeah, I'm sorry. Um, I shouldn't. Is this being recorded? But we're not gonna put it up necessarily. Um, I might host him. We might host him. And so I'm a little worried, Biden. And so I kind of need to be careful because, and I'm going to the convention. So I'm like in, right? And actually, there was a Zoom call with like not a lot of people and him yesterday that I was on. I was literally at the doctor at UCSF doing my like pre-op stuff, and I'm in the waiting room, and like Biden pops up on the Zoom, and it was a call to like tell all of us, the people who've like raised a lot of money for him, basically, that like he's in, he's not leaving, basically shut the fuck up, like get in line. So I feel a little conflicted. I have my personal desire and opinion and my feelings. I watched the debate with his speechwriter in New York. It was really intense. But then I also have my duties to this community, and I don't want to jeopardize those. Does that answer your question in a way that doesn't actually answer it? All right. Okay. You, Dan, you have your mic right there. If you don't mind taking it. Also, the fact that I might host him stays in this room. Okay. But you'll find out about it and the Zoom. What do you think he should do?
I don't think it matters much
Just
what
talk,
any of us
talking to
think.
the mic. Talking to the mic.
I don't think it matters much what any of us think. I think there are 3 or 4 people who are making this decision: Biden, Jill Biden, probably Hunter Biden, Ron Klain. I mean, it's a very tight group who will make the decision. I think, I mean, my personal opinion is that it's really late for him to pull out. Now, he can do it. You know, I think many people would have read James Carville's op-ed in the New York Times. I think it posted yesterday that he's out. He's not going to run. Maybe that's the case. And Carville had a great idea of for how to find the next nominee. If he pulls out, I don't see how it cannot be Kamala Harris. But
You don't like
you know,
this whole like Jim Clyburn's thing about how there needs to be an actual mini primary at the convention?
well, I think that there should be, but I also think that it would be really hard for the Democratic Party to not go with Kamala Harris.
Are you are you one of those people that believes that, because I remember when part of the reason, are you one of those people that believes that Kamala Harris has even greater chance of losing on the national stage than Joe Biden at this point, given the debate performance and the week since? Do you believe that if Kamala Harris were the nominee, she would have less of a chance? And keep in mind, he actually wrote a full 290-page book about Kamala Harris, so he knows this person.
Well, I wrote about her in California. I don't, I have not covered the Biden Harris White House. My knowledge is limited to what she did in California, and a little bit in Washington as a U.S. senator. Um, no, well, okay. First of all, I think it's a demographic question. I think she has a much better chance of winning in 2028 when people who are my age, more baby boomers die off. I think that the younger generation is more amenable to a Black, Asian, South Asian woman than old white guys. I just think it's reality. So 2024 would be tough. 2028 is less difficult, or still tough. 2032. I mean, she's young enough; she can run in 4 or 8 years too. So,
How did you watch the full debate?
oh yeah,
How bad was it in your perspective, as
Uh,
someone that's covered politics for 40 years in
so
California?
it was painful to watch. I mean, it was just painful. I can't imagine. Like, I felt a need to watch it because of what I do. Not that I'm writing about this particularly, but I probably will between now and November. Um, it was painful to watch. If it wasn't sort of my profession, I can't imagine watching. It was too bad. I would have turned it off after 10 minutes.
Do,
Like,
do you think it
who would
mattered?
watch that? Oh, I totally mattered.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, because Biden got an F, right? If he had gotten a C minus, it would have been okay, given how over the top Trump was. I mean, he's still lying about January 6th. I mean, it just goes on with him, but you can't. But the focus isn't on how he performed. It's the focus has been on Biden for the last 10 days, 2 weeks.
How many people in the room watched the whole debate? Okay, don't be embarrassed if you didn't. That's okay. It was painful. How many people watched just like snippets that they saw online and did not watch the whole debate? Okay. How many people didn't watch anything about the debate and just like read? You in the back. Okay. I like an honest.
That's probably the most sane person in the
Yeah,
room. Don't
well,
you think?
I don't know. I felt like we only were getting 2 debates, and because I fucked up, our debate watch party was like overfilled and a lot of people couldn't get in. So, people were trying to watch this thing, not the two of you apparently, but that's okay. What do you think was the most damning moment for the president in this debate?
The beginning. I think I mean, his first few, how he shuffled onto the stage. Yeah, it was. So I think the beginning was really bad. You don't get a second chance to make that first impression, and his first impression to so many people was this meandering answer and his shuffle. It was just awful. But then there were many things to hate during the debate. I mean, I hated the golf back and forth. Like, how out of touch was that? It was just awful.
Yeah, I think the worst part for me was the question of the moderator at the end of the debate that actually said, a lot of people are worried that you're too old to be president. Can you please assuage our fears? And his answer was really bad. I mean, he paused, he mumbled, he went off on a tangent. He talked, I think, about an immigrant killing a woman.
Made no sense.
It basically said, whoever is saying that is right. Like,
Right.
Because I can't answer this question.
Right.
So to me, that was the hardest, because that was like, at least answer the question of I'm fit to serve in a way that instills confidence.
Right.
You have been an investigative reporter. You've reported, you've been given tips, you've investigated things. There were all these claims that came out of the debate. I'm going to name a couple of them. I would love to, if you could put your investigative reporter hat on and see what you think has credibility. There were people that said that his staff purposefully put him out there to fail because they've seen how bad he's been. Have people heard that? Yeah, that they're in a way to, like, as an act of patriotism, that they sent him out there early, because there was all these questions. Why would they do this in June in order for this to happen? Do you buy that at all? That's one claim.
Not even. Well, okay. So if somebody with some level of credibility told me this, right? I would check it out. But I would be so skeptical of it. I mean, my feeling is that he wanted to do this, and his staff probably didn't have a lot of control over it. I think, he's a stubborn guy. He knows what he wants. He knows what he wants, and I think he wanted this debate. And had it worked, had he gotten a C minus, had he gotten a B minus, we wouldn't be talking about this, right? We would be talking about Trump. The campaign would go on. But no, I don't. I guess I just find that so incredibly hard to believe. Can't imagine Ron Klain would have done that.
Okay. The next thing I heard was that this was more of I heard this as a Klein, basically, that the problem with Joe Biden is he's fine on a teleprompter. And if the reason why we haven't known this about him is because we haven't seen him off the teleprompter. He hasn't done very many press conferences. He hasn't done a lot of off the cuff things. Do you think that's true? Do you think that that actually what we saw on the debate night was a more honest assessment of our president, or do you believe their side of the story, which is that he had a cold, he had been flying internationally a few weeks prior, and he just had a bad night?
Well, I think he had an extraordinarily bad night. I don't think all his nights are that bad, right? I can't imagine, because somebody would have, I guess, invoked the 25th Amendment. I can't imagine that he is as bad as we saw him, as the nation saw him on that evening. Um, uh, no, he had a bad night. If you're, if you're old and you have a cold, it could affect you. I mean, more than it would you. More than, I'm old, so it affects me. But I think I think he's, yeah, I think it was just a terrible, terrible, terrible night. I don't think he's that bad, and he's much better on a teleprompter. Watch the State of the Union speech. It was a great speech, right?
But some people are saying that that the State of the Union speech was a one-off, was an exception, and that actually what we saw on debate night is more close to the truth.
Maybe so.
Have you read any reporting that, because I think the American public needs to know this question, because we can all excuse someone a bad night, even the president of the United States. It's really very inconvenient to have that bad night be on the biggest night of the campaign, but we can't excuse this being our president all the time during complicated conversations about war and the economy and et cetera, et cetera.
Sure.
So have you seen any reporting that has led you to believe whether it's more one or the other?
You see, I can't imagine that he's this bad every day. I just can't imagine it. But I also think there's a function of an echo chamber going on here. I mean, I've never worked full time in Washington, but I do know something about how journalism works, and it just strikes me that so much of this is the competitive drive to get a story that your competitor doesn't have, and so it builds on one another, and there's so much of an echo chamber going on. I mean, I'm not covering the race. I don't have deep sources in the White House, so what I know is what I read, and so it is an echo chamber. I think so much of the journalism that's going on right now is a function of that, and it bothers me. It bothers me for my profession.
Okay, I'm going to keep going into mechanics, and then I want to open up to audience as well and let you all know about a series we're going to do on this very topic that we decided we're going to do yesterday. You said I got a sense from your first answer to my question that he had a bad night. It's too late to find a new candidate, basically.
Well, it whether it's too late or not too late, I think is kind of irrelevant at this point. I don't think he's going to move. He's got the delegates, he's got the party apparatus, and while there certainly have been members of Congress and others who have urged him to step aside, I also think that call is quieting a little bit in the last few days.
So that's what I wanted to get to. So I was having a conversation with someone who's deeply embedded in American politics. We were talking. We were just. He asked the question, well, what would need to happen in order for Joe Biden to decide for himself that he wanted to step down in the lead up to the convention? Like, who would need to talk to who? How would that even work? Do you have any sense of what the chain of events would need to be?
I mean, he would give his delegates, I assume, to Kamala Harris, and she would be. I mean, people have elected her, right, as opposed to Gretchen Whitmer or Gavin Newsom or any of the others who are clearly in the mix. But Yeah, I mean, she has his apparatus behind her, although she would have her own people. She's not going to, I would guess, not she would not use his campaign people, but maybe she would. I don't know.
But it's more like it is. I'm trying to think about, because right now the story is very fluid. There have been some Democratic members of Congress that have said he needs to go. I talked to a bunch of members of Congress when I was in New York that were probably like he needs to go, but like everyone's afraid of saying it publicly. There's some like a couple senators that are like, oof, like it was a bad night, like we should consider this. Even Nancy, said that it deserves a second look. But then there was, this letter that he sent to the Democratic members of Congress today. Was it today? I think yesterday.
Yesterday,
He said, I'm not leaving. The Congressional Black Caucus had a closed door meeting today where they, unanimously came out, said that we're not going to support him leaving. But there's also, there are all these other things like this Parkinson's doctor that came to the White House once a month for 6 or 10 months. So I guess I'm trying to wonder, because it's so fluid, like if you can help it, if there's anyone else that has any ideas, like if Jim Clyburn came out and said, actually, I think you should step down, if Barack Obama said it, if there were a set of stories, if he made a couple other more flops, there was someone that wrote an article today that basically said if he trips on the way up to Air Force One, we're done. You know what I mean? If he has another major gaffe on a speech where he loses his train of thought and it's clipped, we're done. But it's hard to know what that tipping point is.
well, he has made gaffes throughout his career. I mean, they're more pronounced now. I mean, and calling himself, the first Black woman in the White House. I mean, my God, it's like where does that come from? It's crazy. So, that that we're focused on Biden, but what about the like kind of scary things Donald Trump is talking about, right? Um, are we really going to look at a nationwide abortion ban in, next year or the year after? I mean, it seems to me it remains a very stark choice. Your question about what the mechanics are, I don't know. I'm not I'm not an election lawyer. I'm not on the rules committee for the convention. I don't know how that would work. I'm sure it could work.
Well, it seems to me it's less about the rules and more about public perception, right? Because we got into this conversation, which was kind of unthinkable pre-debate. Like, I don't think anyone was thinking that we would be having this level of a conversation about removing Joe Biden from the ticket the night before the debate. But here we are. So, and it's based on perception, based on like the results of the debate itself. So I'm wondering, and if others people have a thought, like, in the next few weeks, because we only have a few weeks. What would
really
need to
only have a few weeks.
yeah, what would need to happen publicly in order for the tide to turn to a place where he would have to give his delegates to Kamala Harris or something else?
Yeah, well, he's not going to do it before the Republican convention, right? I mean, he's going to let the Republican convention play out. He's going to wait for Trump to make his vice presidential selection. That could be determinative, it seems to me. And why would he give Republicans that fodder, right, of dropping out and ceding it to Kamala Harris or throwing it open to all comers?
People know when that is. When is the Republican convention? Caleb? Monday. It's Monday? Oh, okay.
Yeah. So nothing's going to happen before Monday.
Okay, so nothing's going to happen before Monday, and it's Tuesday. Wait.
Yeah, next week.
Next Monday. Okay, got it. Yeah. I just forgot the day of the week.
It's easy to do. Yeah. When you get older.
I was in the hospital today. I had got fentanyl this morning.
It can be a good drug.
I'm not going to comment, but it was the first thing I did when I woke up was I said, "Give me more," which is its own thing. Okay, we're just going to do a couple more hypotheticals. If it was thrown to like an actual competition, who would the ideal ticket be, do you think, to beat Donald Trump? Right? Forget about what you think the party should do or would do. Who, given an assessment on, and I kind of want to ask that of the audience as well, because it seems like we've got a pretty informed audience. Like, let's say for some reason, whether you agree with it or not, Joe Biden says, I'm done. I can't, I'm not going to do it. And he opens it up. Who is your ideal 1-2 for a ticket? Hold on, I haven't called on you yet. Yeah, first stand.
So, yeah,
Beating Donald Trump.
I have no idea. I have no idea who the ideal ticket is. I did have somebody over the weekend suggest Kamala Harris and Liz Cheney.
Whoa.
And because I love the guy who told me this like he's my son, who raised this as a possibility. I actually checked it out with some, fairly high level Democrats. What do you think of this? And they both thought it was a terrible idea. So but I don't know, I mean, what about that?
Yeah. I mean, we do have a history in this country of having president and vice presidents be from different parties. It's not that it's never happened before. And I just read that really long Robert Caro book about LBJ and Kennedy. And while they were both Democrats,
very different.
They were very different Democrats that had extremely different records on issues and very different constituencies. And they ran against each other. It was an open convention. He chose LBJ, and it caused huge fighting amongst the party. People were like swore they would never speak to either of them for doing it. So,
well, Roosevelt, Truman.
Yeah.
I mean, the people pick, well, Obama, Biden, right? I mean, you pick the opposite of what you are. You pick what, Obama found the most insider, most establishment white man he could find to be his running mate, and it was really smart. Biden was a really good vice president. And Biden picked his opposite, right? And although she's been cuffed around quite a bit, especially early in her time as vice president, I think she's proving to be, pretty good.
Okay, let's what do other people think? Who would your ticket be and why? I'm gonna get you because go ahead, Pete, and who else, and then we'll go to you next.
I'd like to see Pete and Gavin Newsom.
Why?
Well, I know Gavin Newsom very well, but I just feel like he should be the president and Pete would be the vice president, because Pete, as smart as he is, he looks like a little boy, and he does not, to me, doesn't have really the strong image of a president, whereas Gavin Newsom does.
Okay. How about
I just said one more thing.
Yeah.
This whole tumult has occurred because of that debate.
Yes.
And I said to Dan earlier, why couldn't the president be told, if you're not feeling well, you got a cold, God forbid, just say, I have to bow out and postpone it. The very next day, he was in North Carolina, and he was full of piss and vinegar. I don't think he was talking out of a monitor.
Although I would say, what's your name?
Don Berger.
Oh, you're Don Berger. Sorry,
Yeah.
hi. Don Berger. Sorry, I recognize that voice, but what do you guys think? I feel like we were primed for this though, because so many people already were worried about Joe Biden's fitness to serve. And if there was none of those worries and he had a bad night, we would have been like, yeah, it was a bad night. But the problem is, Don, we've seen him be like this in bits and pieces. And I think people were already waiting for this in a way to happen because we were worried about it. His approval ratings were really, really low. All right, let's go over there. Yes. Who do you think should be running if Joe Biden gives up his seat?
It's less about who and more about process. And my biggest fear is that we go to the convention and then it's complete madness and the people at the convention pick the candidate. And I think that would be disastrous. But, if it's not someone else and it is Joe, my worry with that is that we get to the voting day and people are like, this is just a snooze fest reason for me to go to the polls and I'm not going to participate. And I'm worried that with low voter turnout, that it could be anyone's game. And what I think needs to happen is we need to have a process to select someone. If Joe's going to be it, he needs to prove it that he's the best Democrat to run right now. And if he's going to be the one to do it, he needs to have some big agenda that he obviously isn't talking about right now.
Okay. I want names. You, and then we'll go back to this side. Who should? And it's okay if you don't know, but if you have strong thoughts, be good to express them, and then we'll get to Elise. Yes.
Yeah, so someone really smart to me said Mitt Romney would be the sneaky way to win. But for me, it has to be someone like George Clooney and Rosario Dawson, someone who can remember their lines on TV. And that we have to be really radical and run a
Okay.
winner. Like
Okay.
we have to play to win, and Kamala's not going to win. Gavin's not
Why?
going to win.
Why won't she win? Say it.
I
Why
no
wouldn't she-
one well, no one likes her. We have to win the independents.
Okay.
She's not favorable.
Okay, we're gonna go to Elise, then we're gonna go to the folks who are raising their hands over there in the corner. Elise, who do you think should be on the ticket? I'm not saying you think Joe Biden should step down, but let's say he gives us the delegates away.
Thank you. My ideal candidates would be Stephen Colbert and Amal Clooney. Because
Wow.
Zelensky was also a funny talk show host, and he's doing a great job.
Okay, Stephen Colbert and Amal Clooney. We're getting some zany. Let's keep it over here. Yes, who do you think?
I think the most popular person on the planet, Taylor Swift, could get that. No, I'm only
Come on,
kidding.
man,
But
use
no, no, no. Oh, I
community.
know, I know. Okay, so I think I personally want Kamala Harris and Gretchen Whitmer as my fantasy candidate. Yeah, up ticket.
Yeah.
Okay.
How was she? Good. Good. Let's go over here. Josh, and I'm gonna ask your name, Blue Shirt Man, so I don't have to keep calling you Blue Shirt Man. Go ahead. Yes. What's your name?
Colin.
Colin.
I think it should be a real Democrat. I don't think Liz Cheney or Mitt Romney are anti-abortion, and that's just not going to be.
Yeah.
That's not going to fly for the base of the party.
That's what the Democrats I spoke to said.
But who do you? Do you have a Democrat? Do you have Democrats in mind?
There's a depth of talent. Andy Bashir, Josh Shapiro, basically anyone under 60 and with ambulatory.
Got it. We'll do Josh, then person behind you. Then I have a couple more questions for Dan, and then we're gonna get back into it.
All in for Harris because I think that the power of the incumbency is really important for Americans who are not political, and she's like the best shot, if not Biden, for that. And then a swing state governor or person for VP.
All right, let's get the person behind you. And if there's any like burning ideas, raise your hand. That person that right with the right behind you. Yeah, that person. Yeah.
So my burning idea.
I don't know all of your names.
I'm
So-
Eric.
Hi, Eric.
My burning idea is, first of all, what you said. I think we should think about this not as my personal preference. We should think about this as what is the process for getting us to the right answer. And like Alan Lichtfeld, whatever his name is, he's got some really strong opinions about Biden staying, and that's worth considering. We should listen to others. If we do swap them out, I think somebody with a big brand awareness. I liked Taylor Swift, probably not realistic, but somebody who really is known and likable. But I think more importantly than anything else, the biggest thing that we're missing here is our own attitude. Because if you were to take Trump's name off the top of the ticket and just list his personal qualities and his professional qualities, nobody in their right mind would say, gee, that's a great candidate. The power that he has is from that subset of evangelicals and white nationalists who really want him there. And so a lot of this is about how I don't accept the idea that Biden can't win. I don't accept the idea that Kamala can't win. I don't accept any of that. I think it's more about us and how we unify and get behind the not Trump candidate, whoever that is.
Great. We're gonna do a lot of audience participations. I just want to have a couple more questions for you, and then why don't we open this up a little bit more? Potentially, maybe do some like breakouts. Kamala Harris. Part of the reason why I asked you to come here is because you are one of the experts on Kamala Harris in this country. What that person said in the corner is what a lot of people have said. People don't like her. I mean, and you can fill in the blank as to why, but that is a common refrain. We can't run her because people don't like her. is that true in terms of polling? And then if it is true, why do you think, what is the Kamala Harris problem? Why do you think people don't like her as a potential presidential candidate?
You know, I think it's been so interesting what happened to her since 2020, right? So I know her. I knew her a little bit when she was district attorney, when she was working for Barack Obama's election. It's when I got to know her best, although I first wrote about her in 1994. Um, it, she ran and won statewide 3 times here. She was a very good candidate. I mean, I moderated the debate that she had in 2010 with Republican. She ended up beating. She was really good in that debate. I covered her debate against Sanchez when she ran for U.S. Senate. She was really good in that debate. But what has happened is, you know, she can be her own worst enemy, as so many of us can be. She overthinks things. I mean, I remember many times. I mean, I wrote columns about how she was so cautious, how she wouldn't take a stand. She overthought stuff, and you know, she had terrible missteps at the beginning. But you know, when you look at it, Republicans understood that she was the rising star in 2010. The Republican National Republican Organization, Republican State Leadership Committee, spent over $1 million to block her election in 2010 because they knew that she was going to be formidable. The same thing happened when she became vice president, only more so. And I think it gets into the bloodstream of people in my profession. So, you know, I think that's part of it. The constant attack from conservatives, from Fox, gets into the bloodstream, and then she made her own blunders. You know, Lester Holt interview was terrible. You know, she made mistakes. She gets into word salad. It can be, you know, frustrating.
I guess I wonder how much of it is her identity as a woman and a woman of color, and how much of it has been her performance as a vice president and as a candidate.
Yeah. Well,
Because when I've talked to people, they're like, the country's not ready for a woman, especially not a woman of color. Do you think that is, I mean, there's two men up here asking this question, but
of course it is. I mean, you know, we're willing in 2008 to elect a black man, not a woman. And the same thing in 2016. Like, you know, I mean,
we barely lost. We barely lost in 2016.
We focus on Hillary Clinton's laugh. We focus on Kamala Harris's laugh. I mean, like, what about Trump's laugh, right? I mean, you know, I've seen Kamala Harris dance. I remember reading a column in the Wall Street Journal in the 2020 campaign about how Kamala Harris was dancing. I mean, you know, we've all seen Trump dance. It's like, why do people focus on that? I mean, I think it's so fundamentally sexist.
I would like you to respond to one of the people's comments that, you know, we need to focus on. We need a candidate that can get us back on track in terms of big policy ideas, and that Trump is this terrible candidate. I actually think Trump is a great candidate. Like, he's very charismatic. He is very easy to listen to. He is very convincing. I have been on my back for the last few weeks dealing with an injury, and one of the things that popped up on my YouTube, because that's where I go when I'm wasting my time. And on YouTube, I was sent by the algorithm, I guess, one of the Pauls, Logan Paul. There's another Paul. I don't know. One of the Pauls. Do we know who this is? Like the blonde YouTuber guy, the wrestler. This YouTube celebrity interviewed Donald Trump. Okay, and it was incredible. It was like a really engaging, interesting, funny, off-the-cuff interview. As an example, this was days after the president was convicted of a felony. He comes into the interview room, and the first thing he does is he hands these interviewers 2 T-shirts, and on the T-shirt is a picture of him with his booking picture, his what do you call that? his mugshot. I wanted you to have this as a souvenir. Immediately just kind of neutralizing it, making a joke out of it, showing that he's not afraid to talk about it. And I just thought like that obviously is so humiliating for our country, but it was pretty badass. And I feel like given the electorate, given the situation we're in now, if Joe Biden no longer is our candidate, we need someone who can compete with that level of like energy and
You
riz.
can go head to head with that. Yeah, I'm not sure
Riz?
the Democrat.
Yeah.
Are the Democrats?
Riz.
Yeah, do Democrats really have anybody like that? I mean, I think
Do we?
Trump is unique. There's nobody like him.
But the other thing, a couple people did mention, maybe jokingly, celebrities. What do you think about the whole celebrity idea?
I think
Michelle Obama, Oprah, Stephen Colbert.
yeah, I think running the country is really hard, and I think that you can't be a rookie, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Ronald Reagan was a 2-term governor of California before
That's
he was
true.
president, and so, I mean, I suppose Schwarzenegger became governor, had never been in office before. He did, a fine job once he, after a few years. Reagan did a fine job as governor.
Okay. I just have one or two more questions. I want to open the audience up to questions, and then I want to do 10 minutes of just conversation amongst yourselves. So, because I wanted to keep this to an hour tonight. What do you think the window is? So we have Monday, we have the Republican convention. Nothing's going to happen before that. That lasts a week, say. So we've got 2 weeks. What, like, after 2 weeks, like, what is the time for something to change? Or do you think it's already said and done? Is from what you've read, do you feel like it's over already? Joe Biden's a nominee. Everyone just needs to get in line. Or do you think that, like, what does your timeline look like?
Well, I sort of hate participating in the echo chamber, but my feeling is that the window closed last November. I mean, I just don't, I think it's really, really, really hard for him to pull out. And James Carville knows a lot more than I do. And he says it's over. Well, maybe Carville's right. And I don't, I know something about California. I don't know anything about Washington. So, but my feeling is that the votes have been cast. The delegates have been selected.
What role does California have then in this conversation right now? Our congressional delegation, our leaders. What are you noting about how Gavin Newsom has been presenting, how he's been presenting himself the last 2 weeks?
Well, there are 7 swing seats in the California congressional delegation. 7. If 3 or 4 of those flip from Republicans, they hold 11 right now. That's going to matter nationally. How Gavin Newsom is doing. I mean, I've never had the conversation with Gavin Newsom about whether he's going to run for president. I'm not going to be shocked if he runs in 28 or 32. He could. He's young enough. He's energetic enough. What he's doing now is what he should be doing, I think, which is to be Joe Biden's most loyal governor. And
do you think
it's what Kamala Harris is doing? She's his most loyal supporter.
Okay, but question: do you think he's doing it because he actually believes that it's the right thing to do for our country, or is it some kind of charade?
I can be a pretty cynical guy. I think he thinks that this is the right thing to do.
Why?
I do. Because he's not going to be the nominee in 2024. I think he knows that. I think he thinks he has a chance in 28. I think that. I don't know that. I think he's handling it the way he ought to handle it, right? I mean, he's not the president. He's the governor of a really important state, and it's really a good job. Like, to be governor in California, it's really an amazing opportunity, and he should not squander it.
Okay, and then I guess the last thing I'll ask you: you're not a campaign person or an activist. You're a writer, an author, a reporter, editor. But what do you think the people in this room? What would your guidance to them be as they consume the news, as they talk to their friends about all this, as we all kind of discuss what's going on? What would your counsel be?
Read books. You know, I mean, the more frustrated I get with, you know, I subscribe to the Chronicle, the LA Times, Washington Post, New York Times, and lots of other publications that don't charge. And I find all of that pretty frustrating, and it's more and more partisan. And I see stuff in news stories that just strike me as loaded, and it bugs me. Like from the very best publications, I see stuff that I just think is loaded. So I spend a lot of time reading books these days.
Is there a book that you would suggest people pick up and
Oh,
read? One book?
read, well, right now, because I'm focused on my next book, I'm reading nothing but books about mental illness and the mental health care system and stuff like that. And every once in a while, a good politics book. Yeah, that's
Okay, but there's a book about the American
the
political
Fall of
system.
Roe. The Fall of Roe is an amazing piece of journalism.
The Fall of Roe.
Fall of Roe is a great book, new out right now. So
All right. All right. Let's get some questions for Dan. Go ahead. What did you think of the Stephanopoulos interview? That was the interview on Friday at ABC. Great question.
it didn't solve Biden's basic problem. Yeah, it wasn't as bad as the debate, but it didn't solve his problem. And I don't know that. I don't know that any single interview at this point is gonna solve
All right,
his problem.
Colin, and then we'll go to Don, unless other people. Colin.
Yeah, very briefly, if the die was already cast by December, what's going to be the judgment on what the DNC did as far as arranging a process that essentially fixed it for Biden? For example, Florida didn't even have a presidential primary. There certainly was a concerted effort to push out any serious candidates, unless you include Dean Phillips or Marianne Williamson.
I don't.
And when is it too early to start the postmortems? I mean, I honestly think that this is the historical judgment on Biden is going to be that his decision to run was fundamentally as selfish as Ruth Bader Ginsburg's refusal to retire when it was time for her to do so.
All right, question on whether you think it's too early to start looking at the primary process.
Well, we're not going to know for a while. So you could, I would think that as a journalist, if I were assigned to this story, I would think it's an almost, well, I think it's an impossible story to get right now. I can't imagine how you would get it. You could get it in a year. And the question, it's the basic question, like, what did you know and when did you know it? Right. And, but I don't think you can get that story right now. I have no doubt that people are trying. Right. But it also is, you're also assuming that you're assuming that bad night is what he's going through every day. And I'm not willing to make that assumption, right? I mean, I don't know. So yeah.
That's the other part that's kind of hard about this, is that, like, we're getting lots of different facts, right? We're getting lots of different stories and facts from different reporters and different threads in terms of, then he said it was because he was flying too much. And so I do think, as just a consumer of the news, I'm also a little bit like, what do I believe? Like, what actually happened? Yes, go ahead, here in the front. And then we'll get one or two more questions, and then we'll close it out.
Thank you. What do you think is Jill Biden's motivation for continuing to support him in such a diehard way?
Jill Biden?
Jill.
Yeah, Jill. I think that she loves the guy. I think that this is, I think she's doing, well, I think she loves the guy. And I also, well, I mean, that's why I say the decision is going to be made by, really two people, Jill and Joe Biden, and then Hunter and Ron Klain probably in the mix. But, I think that she knows him better than anybody else. I would hope that she would, if she believes that he's in decline, that she would, do something. But, I think her motivation is she believes in him. She loves him.
All right, let's try to get some
Simple.
folks who didn't speak yet. So go
Simple,
ahead.
but pretty complicated.
I had a question changing gears slightly, but back to Kamala, which I know is your specialty. I'm curious, like, how much in her time as senator and just in the state, like, she ever got pushed as like coming across as inauthentic, and like how much of this was either like sexism and or like not her story of being relatively tough on crime, safe on crime, just did not work in the moment of 2020 versus is that something that's like been consistent throughout previously in her career? Because that's what a lot of people have attributed to some of her unpopularity.
Sure. She took that hit when she was attorney general, that she was, that she was inauthentic. You bet. That's certainly the case. I'm burdened by knowing people who know her really, really well, and who I have known longer than I've known her, and who I trust, and who, really think very highly of her. Now, she's really tough to work for. She goes through a lot of staff. That happened when she was attorney general, and and it obviously happened as vice president. But yeah, it's been something that she's had to deal with a lot. She's a very closed book, right? She doesn't let on what's going on in her head, and so and like maybe Bill Clinton, who's he sort of wore his heart on his sleeve. She doesn't. She doesn't. Although she has an empathy gene. I mean, one of the things I write about a fair amount in Kamala's Way is things that she does when nobody's looking, like go to visit people on their deathbed. She doesn't have to do that, but she takes time out of her day to out of her schedule to go do that. To me, that's an authentic thing. That's a real thing. And but she doesn't talk about that. She doesn't let people in on that.
Okay, I know that there are more questions, but I really want people to have the opportunity to discuss amongst themselves some of the things that were said tonight and were heard. Are people interested in that for like 10 minutes? Okay, great. So instead of asking more questions for Dan and myself, what I'll do is I'll just propose a couple discussion questions amongst groups, and I'll just ask you to self-organize. Before I do that, because people might have to leave, I want to let you know about a couple upcoming events. Tomorrow we have an event on Thursday night. We have Steve Jobs' son, Reed Jobs, who started a $100 million fund to cure cancer. And it's in San Francisco, and it's a conversation with Reed about curing cancer and that which he is working on. And it's about the effort to cure cancer in our lifetime. So really interesting conversation. Definitely be there for Thursday. Next week, we have on Monday night, I believe, we have a couple legal experts that are going to be going through the Supreme Court docket and the decisions that the Supreme Court recently made, what it means for our democracy, for our politics, explaining the docket and the decisions. So if you're reading about all these Supreme Court cases and you don't know what they mean, come on Monday. And then next Wednesday, I believe, and this is what I want to announce, we are starting a new series called The Road to November, where we're going to be having conversations like this, but with lots of different kinds of experts, journalists, campaign folks, elected officials, podcasters. Dan Pfeiffer is coming in a few weeks to talk about this for Pod Save America. And next week on Wednesday, we have the chair of the Michigan Democratic Party, Lavora Barnes, Black woman, amazing, incredible Midwest Democrat. Lavora is going to be coming to talk about the road to November, the debate, all this stuff. I'm working on getting Gretchen to come for her book tour. So we have a whole set of people who are going to be coming and discussing the road to November. So look out for that series and sign up for next Wednesday's conversation with Lavora Barnes. And Don will drive us down that road. Okay, let's give a round of applause to Dan Moraine. And then why don't we do this? Just this group right here, got a chunk there, got a chunk there. We have a chunk right here. We've got this, you two of you here, turn around to those. How about that chunk over there in the back, like you and the people behind you in the table, everyone in the back row together, and then that whole area, divide, Josh, get them divided into two different places. Okay, behind you, that divide into two chunks. Here's what I want you to talk about. Introduce yourself very quickly. What, discuss like what you heard tonight. What do you think is the right thing for Joe Biden to do for our country? And then also, like, I think probably also, if Joe Biden doesn't step down, like, what do you think should happen? Should we all just get in line and help him? Should there be a movement to try to make him come down? And then just kind of just give your thoughts and your reactions to what you heard tonight amongst each other. Okay, 10 minutes. That's all I'm asking for. Thank you very much, everyone. We'll see you soon.